If, instead of rebooting movies, it became a trend to retell them from a different character's perspective, what film would you want to see retold and from whose point of view? The Matrix from Agent Smith's view. Constantly trying to quell the stupid human insurrection. I was going to say The Matrix from Morpheus' point of view. The prequel being how he learns of the One and getting his band of folks to find Neo. I'd actually like to see The Matrix from Cypher's point of view. The path that leads his bitterness and resentment to betray everyone, obviously the climax of the film being his failure and death. I dig how you used spoiler font for a 20-year-old movie. People complain about Titanic spoilers. And Apollo 13. Please don't say anything else. I'm only on Apollo 11 and I didn't know they'd make it to 13. Edit, thanks for the penguin. The story of how Grandpa Joe got into bed and then decided to just stay there, the lazy old cunt. Explain yourself. Or Grandpa Joe hate. Ender's Shadow did this exact thing with Ender's Game, done by the original author, no less. And it is brilliant. The whole Shadow series is seriously one of the best stories I've ever read. Series. I know only the first book. You're saying there were more? Or are you referring to the Speaker for the Dead stuff? Dude, the Shadow series is a must-read. Imagine if at one time in history, Alexander of Macedonia, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Shaka Zulu, Caesar, Hitler, and Sun Tzu were all duking it out. So a game of Civ basically. Star Wars from the Empire's POV, basically telling the story about this terrorist group that was planning the biggest act of terrorism in the galaxy's history, the destruction of a military peacekeeping starbase. We follow the Empire's anti-terrorism unit as they try to find the spies transporting the stolen plans and head off the attack. Not a retelling of any of the movies, but there was a Star Wars novel in the 90s where each chapter retold the same story from a different character's point of view, with most chapters extending the story and occasionally introducing new characters, who then got a turn in the spotlight in a later chapter. It was my favorite Star Wars novel. There's also From a Certain Point of View, a book that was published a few years ago. It did the same thing for A New Hope, telling stories from the perspective of 40, I think, background characters in the original movie. It's a Wonderful Life from Mary, the wife's point of view. Married to a dreamer with fits of depression, while raising 4 kids, rebuilding a beautiful old Victoria house, helping him make his dream of helping his community come true and trying to protect him from his loser uncle, all while watching him spiral into a deeper and deeper depression. Will she be able to help him out of it? Absolutely, she can help him out of it. I'd almost argue that Mary is the most important character in that movie. She drives a large amount of the action. Who declares marriage at the age of like 8? Married. Who offers their honeymoon money to save the bank? Married. Who goes around asking neighbors and friends for help against the feds when George goes missing? Married. She's the best. Not to mention buying an old house and fixing it up while having 4 kids underfoot and helping all the working class neighbors move into their new homes, dealing with a mother who obviously didn't like her choice in husbands and constantly being an optimist. Movie should have been called It's a Wonderful Wife. I get a little ticked at George every time he goes up the stairs and gets pissy because she hasn't gotten around to fixing the banister yet. Any action movie from the perspective of a goon, a random, unimportant member of an evil force who would in any typical scenario serve as just another body the protagonist would blow away. He might not be the mastermind, but he has a name, face below that mask, his own story, his family, and he will protect that murky warehouse for his boss as long as he has bullets in his MP5, even if he isn't that much of a sharpshooter. reminds me of the premise of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It takes these two background characters from Hamlet and creates a really interesting surreal story. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I'm sure I'm doing it no justice here. It's a great play by Tom Stoppard, made into a superb film written and directed by Tom Stoppard, starring Gary Oldman and Tim Roth as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. I think you mean Gary Oldman and Tim Roth as Guildenstern and Rosencrantz. Toy Story. Andy, a young boy who enjoys playing with his toys in his spare time, often wanders into his room to find things off. Something may have moved, a toy may have vanished only to reappear the next day. Voices are heard from his room from the ground floor only to hear a slight panic then silence whenever he approaches the room again. And imagine, one day, if he heard this talking once again only to walk into his room, hear the split-second shock to silence just to see his favorite cowboy toy laying on the floor. Only this time, just before he laid his eyes on the toy, he could see in the corner of his eye the left hand of Woody just slightly flop to the ground. Flop to the ground as if he just fell. But how could a toy fall if it was laying on the ground to begin with? That's it, it was laying on the ground the whole time. He begins to think that he is never truly alone in his room anymore, and those beady toy eyes that face him in the night while he's sleeping aren't just facing him out of chance. They're watching him. They're looking. Andy isn't alone. Nor was he ever alone. This is the tale of a boy who loses his mind at the thought that he has never been alone for his entire life, and that the friends he made growing up may be a little more real than he first thought. A little too real. You just simultaneously ruined my childhood and made me extremely nervous about my GF stuffed animal sleeping in our room. Saving Private Ryan from Private Ryan's point of view. It's most just him slogging in the army until Captain Miller shows up. That crazy guy from Bird Box who forced people's eyes open. Seriously, I want a story about what he actually saw and why he wanted people to see it so bad. They had an idea for the monster in mind and originally planned to reveal it, but it's probably best they didn't. IRC, it was basically a giant green baby. That's not what he saw though. He saw what they made him see, and it was something so amazing it drove him mad. No, everyone sees the monsters, but people with mental illnesses aren't typically affected by the suicide part of the symptoms. That dude was insane before he saw the monsters, and then he was insane afterwards. He was just able to point his insanity at something afterwards. The director's comments on the green baby monsters was that that's what the main character would see because of her fear of children, pregnancy, and being a mother. I haven't read the book, so I don't know if it's different in there, but it seems like in the movie version, everyone sees something different. Mean Girls, as told by Regina George. This could also go dark. Her home life was obviously messed up. What was growing up in that household like? Imagine Regina flashbacks. The Lion King from Scar's POV. There's already precedent for doing this to Lion King. Lion King 1:12 is Timon and Pumbaa's full story, and it's absolutely fantastic. Edit, is Disney boosting this or something? This is an absurd amount of karma. I love that movie simply because it continues the Hamlet comparison. If Lion King is Hamlet, then Lion King 1:12 is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Plus Lion King 2 was Romeo and Juliet. Shrek, from the bear child's point of view. At the start of the movie you can see Mommy Bear and Daddy Bear and the child all in a cage, and later you can see the child bear crying into Daddy Bear. Lord Farquaad is then later shown to have a bear mat. Edit, when child bear is crying into Daddy Bear, Mommy Bear is missing. Okay, you win. This is the best host so far. I want to know R2D2's perspectives. He swears too much. R2D2 really puts the R in the RH rating. Fight Club from the view of Marla. Edit, till I need to read the book, and stop listening to fan theories on Reddit. I would love the story to be retold from any POV so I could watch Ed Norton punch himself over and over again for 2 hours. Matrix, but from the perspective of a regular police detective trying to stop the murder spree of these crazy people who kill everybody without reason. At one point he would interrogate Neo, so you believe that nothing is real. That's why you can kill random people. Because they don't exist. No, the world is fake, but the people are real. And you kill them anyway. That sounds like it could be exceptionally fun if the cop in question begins to learn to bend the rules of the Matrix. He is exposed to enough of the rebels' antics to believe and seek out the truth and how to experience it, but still decidedly falls on the side of people still living in the system, defending the innocents who are callously overlooked in this higher-level war. They mostly get their ass kicked, but manage to save just enough people, just enough of the time, to maintain a morale and sense of purpose. Later on, the Smith virus takes hold and they desperately try to create a hidden community in this world, meant to parallel the rebels' colony in the real world, and just as that begins to hopelessly fall in upon itself, the final fight ensues upon Neo's return,